We're just saying like happy
We're, yeah.
So of course I'm late.
I'm early. We are live. Good morning, everyone, or at least good morning from Alaska time zone.
Good morning, Academy.
And we have an exciting guest today. Danielle Rodolsky is here, and we're going to be chatting Instagram today.
We don't actually know if she's exciting, but we're excited.
Well, we're excited.
Crossing our fingers.
Yeah.
We're just meeting her for the first time.
Yeah, this could be crazy, guys.
It could, totally could be. So we'll go ahead and start with a bow. And feeling your feet on the floor, wherever you are, coming into your body, taking a moment to connect to your breath, connecting to the space above your head, the space below your feet and around your body. Hands are gently resting on your thighs. Eyes are open. A nice deep breath, inviting this space in to your body. And as you exhale, letting your breath move out into space. And with friendliness and respect, go ahead and give it away.
All right. Kenny, you have an introduction to make, right?
I do, yes. Yeah, so we've got a couple, before we get into our introduction of Danielle, we've got a couple of housekeeping things. So you might have noticed there was no LMS release this week. You will get one this coming Sunday. There are 2 meetings this week. So we have our meeting at our normal time today, and then we also have a one-off meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, which is going to be on Facebook Live. So you have all that information coming your way as well. This is also our last week of social media. So this is why it's super exciting that we are going to be discussing Instagram with Danielle. And it looks like we just lost Danielle. So we will bring her back on. And
yeah, just continue and we'll work on bringing her back.
Yeah, no worries. So while we're doing that,
hi guys.
And we've got Danielle back. Yeah, so Danielle Rodolsky is a 20-something yoga teacher, fitness enthusiast, and wannabe chef from Westchester, New York. Her mission is to enjoy a happy and healthy life doing the things she loves while trying to help others do the same. From yoga flows to healthy recipes and travel tales, she shares it all through her blog, The Silver Lining Yoga, which is thesilverliningyoga.com, and her Instagram page, which is at Danielle_Rodolsky. And I believe all of you have hopefully made it over to her page and commented all over the place and took notes. We got some great questions from you all as well in the LMS discussion board. So thank you for those, and we'll dive into some of those. And then we have Waylon, who is our fearless leader and our founder of Elephant Journal, an editor-in-chief in all things elephant. And Waylon, could you tell us how you connected with Danielle and how
it was the winter of 1947. So I think Danielle probably knows how I connected with her. So she started it. It was her fault. So Danielle, you were posting from some other account, not Danielle Rodolsky, right? What was that other account? It was like a yoga.
Yovada, yeah.
What is it?
Yovada. I was there.
Yovada.
Like, social, yeah. I was doing social.
So I'm always, I'm on Instagram like twice a day at least, but twice a day officially, posting around of post to Eco Folks and Elephant Journal and Walk the Talk Show and Waylon Lewis. And I habitually, and we'll talk about how to kind of do Instagram right, treat it like a community, not just like a numbers game, but I check, who's tagging us, who's messaging us. I reply to messages or don't sometimes. And I started seeing a lot of tags from this Yovada thing. Is that what it is? Yovada?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Like you were running Yovada's
Instagram.
So
I was doing their social and their marketing. So I was just kind of using Instagram there to try and, obviously build brand awareness for them, but also to connect to any like-minded, not only consumers, but also, other companies kind of, building that whole idea of community. So
you were tagging, maybe let's just jump into a little technical stuff. Like how many tags did you do on each post?
Did you say how many?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would do anywhere from like, honestly, like 10 to 15, as long as they're appropriate. Like I wouldn't tag anybody if it wasn't relevant. Right. I would tag a lot of, you know, trying to build awareness with like Well and Good, Mind Body Green, any other kind of like big companies, because for them that was, you know, that was their target demographic. For me, from my personal, it's like I tag, you know, a lot of people that I find to be inspirational. So if I do a post that's inspired by them, or an inspirational quote, or I watched a podcast or listened to a talk, I think that people really like to be kind of flattered. And I think that telling someone like, hey, I think you're awesome and I'm going to tag you so that you see this is kind of like almost like a tap on the back or a pat on the back, you know? So that's, to me, like, I love using tags for that.
Yeah. No, it was super effective. And it's funny. So this is a first great tip to people is a lot of pros, and pros are just people who kind of get it, not professionals necessarily, on Instagram will tag Elephant, Mind Body Green, Well and Good, whatever their demographic is, but we tend to be in that kind of demographic. And they'll do it repeatedly again and again. And then you'll look at the caption, there won't really be anything about you. So it really is what Danielle was saying. It's like a tap. You're like, hey, we get tagged, as you can imagine, in like 8,000 elephant photos a day. People are like looking up huge elephant accounts and they think, you know, so they just tag us. So that's actually a happy accident because no one hates looking at 8,000 photos of people meeting elephants for the only time in their entire life, and then tagging you on it. But so Danielle stood out to me, or maybe you didn't. I think you probably tagged us a few times, which is part of what's the technique of what's so good. Keep doing it consistently.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the first or the 20th time you tagged us. I started being like, oh, Yovata.
Yeah.
And I started being like, what are these photos? What's the caption? I started getting curious. And then I think you were in a lot of the photos, right?
I there was probably a couple of me because we did an event, but I was also like, I had it in my personal page in my bio that I was like their social manager. So, you know, I'm sure that like from Yovata probably came like suggested pages, Danielle Radulski, you know, that type of thing.
So that's another good thing is, you know, the suggested pages, if you're just starting out, you know, follow, like if you're super into cabins, there's like 20 different cabin accounts. Half of which are irritating and spammy, but you know, like follow things. You can always unfollow them.
Yeah.
I definitely follow people.
Yeah.
The other day I was in a cafe and, you know, I'm not like super puritanical about sex stuff, but I was in a cafe just going through my feed and someone decided to put up a photo of themselves completely stark naked. And I was like, you know, that's a bit much for like 10 in the morning in a public cafe. Oh, did you see Waylon Lewis, editor-in-chief of Elephant Surfing Porn in the cafe? I'm not into that. So I unfollowed them. It's not because I hate them or anything. You can be very casual about following or unfollowing.
Yeah. And I think certain times where stuff like serves you, like stuff is super inspirational and it's like that you're totally resonating with it at a certain point. And I think then, you know, everything's like phases. So I think that, you know, that's important too.
Yeah, Elephant's a bit different than like a Danielle Radulski account because, so like we just posted a post about the shooting in Florida, and within 5 minutes we had someone saying unfollowing you, you know, and we had other people saying stay out of politics, and we had other people saying disappointed in you, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we always have to say, hey, you know, politics are part of life. They influence education and food and war and, you know, equality and infrastructure. You can't get away from politics. Let's just try to talk about it mindfully. But anyway, let's talk about Danielle. So your photos were really beautiful, which a lot of photos on Instagram are. They were really simple, which a lot of good photos on Instagram are. But then once I started following you, that's when I like became a real fan. Yovata was just, you know, it was like another beautiful, tasteful, well done account.
Yeah.
But the personal thing with that is kind of what we teach. And, you know, I'm vegan, but I love seeing your meals. I love seeing, I think that's you know, like there's all these photos of some dog or your boyfriend or a house or running.
Yeah, he's my little human.
So there's just some life, you know, there's some personal connection there. So maybe tell us, how do you choose to share your personal life, and what are the boundaries there for privacy? Because you are, you know, if I may, you are a woman. I'm trying not to.
No, please.
But you're a woman in yoga
Yeah.
poses. Like, do you get, so there's a couple questions there. How much do you decide to share about your personal life? And if you do get weird messages, how do you handle it?
Okay. So I pretty much, it's funny because when I first started my page, it was a lot of different things. So it was food, fitness, yoga, lifestyle, my dog. Then it would be like where I went over the weekend. So it took me a long time to kind of refine where I was going, what I wanted to do. And I think that that's something that was really important when I was starting my page, was finding something that not only I felt comfortable and resonated with, but that also other people were resonating with. Like, you know, there's some accounts that are all food and that's amazing, but my food was like just not that great. Let's be honest. Like the visuals just weren't like the yoga photos. So,
well, that's kind of what I like is your food doesn't look like a photo shoot happened. It looks like your dinner and it looks like you're excited about it. You're like, yummy.
Yeah.
You know, so sorry, go ahead.
No. So I think that I choose to do more of my sharing through writing, right? Which is, to me, like, I see my Instagram page as a journal. So rather than, you know, sharing 5 photos of my dog or my boyfriend or where I was over the weekend, I'll share like a really beautiful photo of me doing yoga. And then I'll talk about like how my experience made me feel, or how my weekend changed my perspective around, you know, something that I learned. I think that I don't share a lot. Like, I share a lot more tidbits of my personal life on my story. For me, I think that that's better, just in terms of what I feel people resonate with. The food and that type of content on my feed just doesn't do that well.
So that distinction is about what connects in terms of likes or views. And
I think too, it's about like what people then end up coming to you for, right? Like, people aren't coming to me really for recipes. I mean, I wish that they would, but people aren't really coming to me for recipes, right? They're coming to me for yoga, or maybe like an inspirational quote, or, you know, maybe talking and being really transparent about my anxiety, like things like that people can connect with, I think is where the beauty in the platform is.
So can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
How do you not, because I regularly unfollow, I feel like there's a cycle of Instagram, particularly yoginis, where they start off posting and you're kind of like, oh, wow, they're a really fun, cool person, and they're traveling and they have some cool issues to talk about, like anxiety, that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And then they start getting popular. This just happened with me in an account where we had actually invited her to be on our video series, our talk show, which has pretty big reach and it's kind of a big deal. And her posts started getting popular. And, you know, it's like a boy or a girl when they're young and they've discovered that they're cute.
Yeah.
You're like, it starts feeling icky. And like, how do you not let Instagram warp your sense of who you are?
I think that I try to be someone that I would want to follow. So I want to be someone that's inspirational, that's not selling something every chance that they get. That's not, you know, I try to find a balance between keeping it real. And then, you know, of course, I'm going to do photo shoots. I'm going to go take nice pictures. I mean, it's part of the game. But to me, it's finding that balance between like, okay, I don't want this to look fake, but I also want there to be some nice stuff here. I think that for me, it's like I try to show more of like who I am, like through video and content like that on my stories. So my goal is like, if you're ever to run into me on the street, you would feel like you've known me for the past 5 years or however long you've been following me, because I try to be the same person on that screen as I am in real life.
So there are 2 things here that if anyone is actually going to seriously get into Instagram, that I would love for you to write down. Like Danielle just said, I try to something like share or be the kind of account you would want to follow.
Yeah.
That is kind of the definition of empathy. That prevents you from getting high off your own supply, to quote Scarface. You know, there's a sort of sickly sweet thing that happens with Instagram success where, and luckily I'm a big ugly lump of a dude, so I'm a little more protected from that. But if you're kind of doing the whole game, as Danielle called it, you can really get high off of yourself. And, you know, I'm good friends with and have even been pretty close with various Instagram stars. And so this is another question. It becomes their whole life.
Right.
Like all day long, they're trying to get you to take photos of them. They're ruining every nice moment ever by trying to
boyfriend.
40. Huh?
The Instagram boyfriends, like those people that just look like they travel with like a a photographer that wants That's not me. My boyfriend takes like none of my pictures, but I know that that's like a common thing.
Yeah. Someone find that link. There's a YouTube boyfriend video that was super funny.
One of our apprentices did ask who takes your photos.
Yeah,
it's a combination. To be honest, probably 70% of the photos is a self timer and a tripod. That was a really cool time when I was perfecting that. I try to share some of the bloopers on my story sometimes just because they're like hysterical. And then, you know, I shoot with a couple friends, you know, like we'll take photos of each other, but I rarely do big shoots unless it's for like a company that I'm working with, or, you know, I just want to collaborate with someone who's in town or something like that. It's usually kind of hodgepodge, but it's fun. It's fun to see it more as a collaboration rather than a job, right?
So Kenny, do you actually, maybe this is a good segue. There's so much we can talk about.
Oh yeah, no. And this is great because I am an Instagram newbie. Like I'm learning just as much or if not more than anybody else. But I was curious when I was looking through your page and I noticed a big jump probably about a year ago. And likes and views on your stories. And I wonder if was there something that you were working on and that you were doing that really just kind of lifted up, or did you see like a huge jump in followers? Because I see you're at like 40,000, 40,500 or so followers.
I think a couple of the really big things that made a difference for me was number one, being transparent. People love honesty and realness and being raw and saying like, listen, today kind of sucked. It wasn't a great day. And then also saying like, okay, sharing your peaks and valleys.
Oh, got a little bit of freezing.
Yeah. Kenny, what I was going to say is we could ask those questions from the people. But so I'll just talk for a second and wait for Danielle to come back. So I think why we are hosting Danielle, hopefully present tense, on this today is because she's back.
She's back.
Danielle, I was just talking behind your back. I was just saying why I wanted to invite you is, and then we can get back to what you and Kenny were talking about. I was just trying to fill the dead air.
Yeah.
Is Danielle is one of like probably 40% of like the yoga Instagram crowd who isn't, who is relatable. She does feel like a friend, or, you know, she does feel like someone who, if you met her in real life, she would be that person. And that is what Elephant is trying to teach, how to change the world through social media, not just use it as a sort of ego boost. And at the same time, there is nothing wrong with celebrating your life. There's nothing wrong with yoga poses. There's nothing wrong with being beautiful or showing beautiful food, or, you know, it's not, there's, you know, the Buddha talks about the middle way. So it's not that you have to avoid anything to do with yourself and kind of hate yourself. That's weird. But you also don't have to get off or get high on your own self and get other people into this weird cult of personality that might feel kind of good, but really serves no greater purpose in a world that desperately needs bright lights to shine. So back to Kenny and Danielle.
And that's the main theme of our conversation today is that authenticity to be able to build community, and how you've been able to do that with. And I think the conversation that how you guys are both originally connected is so interesting, especially in our social media world now, where you have people in completely different parts of the country connecting over social media, but having that authentic experience, right, and having an experience of building community within this digital sphere that doesn't feel exploitive, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think too, like when you start to share a little bit more transparently, regardless of what it's about, I think that it also gives you a bit of a differentiating factor. I think that maybe it gives someone an opportunity to connect with you maybe on a level that they don't connect with another person, or maybe, you know, it gives them that chance of not feeling like alone in such a big space. So I think that that transparency does really open up the doors for that more organic relationship. And I think that when you have that organic relationship with your community is when it really turns into a community rather than just a number of followers.
Let's talk a couple practical things. So how often do you post a day?
So I'm a big believer. When I first started my page, I was like, I have to post 2 or 3 times a day. Now I post usually once a day during the week, and then I don't post on the weekends. Wow. I think that consistency is important, yes, but I also think that posting 2 photos a week that are great photos rather than 6 photos a week that are half, you know, not that great. I think that the quality is important. If you can't share logistically on your feed, if you're too busy, you don't have content, be active in other ways. So share on stories. You can, you know, leave comments on other people's pages. I try to be as active as I can. You know, anyone that I follow, or every now and then I'll go into the Discover and try to connect with new people. I try to at least every comment on my photos, just because I think, again, it's another way of engaging and another way of making a connection.
So coming back to my earlier question, what do you ever get creepy DMs or PMs or comments? And if so, how do you work with that?
I've gotten a couple. To be honest, they really haven't been that bad. I've heard girls that have like horror stories. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had many. I've gotten like a couple nasty comments. I just delete it and block them. I don't even acknowledge it. And the same with the messages. I just block them and report them.
So it's easy to sort of block an awful comment, but what if it's sort of like kind of half awful and half, like, do you work with it? Do you try to like?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that I feel like I actually have a response to, of like, hey, I think this could be valuable for someone else to see, especially how you're handling it, then I do reply. Always just leading, you know, this is like an open platform. And like, I've had people message me and say a couple times, like, you know, you used to be really authentic and you're not authentic anymore. Right. And I was like, okay, I don't agree with that. But I was like, okay, you're entitled to feel how you'd like to feel. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. But at the same time, like, I'm doing everything I can to make this a great space for everyone, yourself included. So, you know, I think a lot of people get upset when they see, granted, I've never been paid for an Instagram post in my life. So that's what I told her. And I think that was important because I think people see feeds that start to turn into ad reels. And like, for sure, that's frustrating. But I mean, again, I get both sides of that. But back to your original question, yes, if it's something that's kind of midway, I will directly address it just in a polite way.
And if they say you're not authentic or something, do you ask them? Like, to me, that would be interesting. I would be like, oh, what are you not liking? You know?
The person had felt like I was putting up ads on my page, but I wasn't. I was like, listen, I don't post anything that I don't actually
clothes, you mean?
Yeah, for clothes. And I was like, listen, I don't post anything if I don't use it first and like it. Like, these are clothes that I wear. So I thought sharing, you know, a discount code for you would be nice in case anybody wanted to use it. You don't have to pay full price. I was like, but not for nothing. If you feel like that, like, you know, she's like, I'm going to unfollow you. I said, okay, you have every right to, you know, I'm not. And that's another thing. It's like, I'm not forcing anyone to be there. So it's funny that you said that you're vegan in the beginning of the conversation, because I know that a lot of people are. And I'm waiting for like that day that I get a message of like, you're not a real yogi, like you eat meat. Like, I'm just waiting. But again, like, that's part of it. And when you're sharing your life, you're bound to get, you know, and again, it's a conversation. To me, it's like, I'll talk to you about anything as long as you're not coming at me in a negative way. And I think that there's a lot of value to be had in having a conversation rather than an argument. So.
Yeah.
I'm curious just because you talked about having a marketing background and how you chose Instagram as a platform, if it just kind of grew organically from working with other yoga studios, or if it was something that was a specific choice, or have you used other platforms? Or
So I really liked Instagram. I had started my Facebook page, and to be honest, I was basically cross promoting. So what I was posting on Instagram, I was posting on Facebook, and I didn't really have a specific strategy for Facebook in itself, which I think was part of the hiccup. because I think if people were following me on both platforms, they were just seeing the same thing twice, which, you know, is not that appealing at the end of the day. You want to see new content, not the same thing 10 times. Another thing that I had an issue with a little bit with Facebook was just reaching people. I found it a lot easier to reach people on Instagram, but I'm a big believer in where your everybody's audiences lives in different places, right? So for me, I think that my yoga people that I connect with that I want to reach are on Instagram. I just wasn't able to connect with as many people organically on Facebook. So that was kind of like a natural progression that pushed me over to Instagram. You know, I have the Facebook account with my same Silver Linings name just to have the consistency. I have Twitter. I don't have Snapchat. And then I have YouTube and my blog. I love YouTube, something I'm trying to get a little bit more into. I think that there's a lot of value in YouTube, especially just because of my field. But yeah, that was actually one thing I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that I said was just choosing a couple platforms, especially in the beginning, that you can really give your full heart to, because I feel like a lot of the times, like when I started, I wanted to have every single platform, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like everything. And it was just too much. And, you know, then basically what ended up happening was just these things looked like dead zones because I couldn't keep up with it. So I think just choosing a couple places where you feel like, A, you're passionate about it, and B, that's where your demographic lives is really important.
So let me ask, we teach that same thing. A lot of people, you know, we have 34 staff full time. People are always like, why are you not doing more on Pinterest? We do have a presence there, but we're not rocking it.
Right.
Why aren't you on Snapchat? We are there, but we do nothing at all. You know, etc. So we always teach people in the academy, all of you guys, and sometimes people sort of have an issue with that. Like, don't try to do everything. Do the ones that you connect with, but also, and let's get to this, that are practical. So, you know, in 1 year, I built up our YouTube platform. We still post to it, but we don't really try to build it up anymore.
Right.
We had like 5 million views in a year, and everything was great and fun, but literally how much income did we make for that? So we're always teaching how do you use social media instead of being used by it.
Right.
So very simple question. Why do you post at all to Instagram, practically speaking, from a paying your rent point of view? Why do you post to YouTube? What is your game plan? How do these, you know, nourish your life?
So what I do on my Instagram, especially now that I've been growing my community, is I try to create opportunities to meet these people in real life. Or, I mean, for, I guess, some people, it could be selling them a product or selling them a video or a subscription to something. But in my case, it's, you know, workshops and classes. So what I try to do is find a balance. I would say about 20 to 30% of my posts are more promotional marketing. Granted, they're promotional marketing of myself. You know, so it's like I'm promoting a workshop, or I'm promoting classes that I'm doing, or, you know, I'm trying to grow my email list by giving out an ebook, stuff like that. So for me, that's why I do it. I want to be able to travel and teach and, you know, meet these people that have been an integral part of this community in real life at some point. So
is that working for you? Are you able to put up like, hey, I'm going to Greece from April 5th through 8th. Come join me. There's 35 spots, and you can now start filling it.
Yeah, like I'm selling out workshops in New York. I haven't done a workshop abroad yet, but I have a couple.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, but I have a couple of retreats coming up this year. And then it's funny, just on the marketing side, like aside from what I do with teaching yoga, on the marketing side, I've gotten like 3 or 4 clients, freelance marketing clients through my page. So, you know, they're not coming to me for yoga, but they're like, okay, maybe this girl kind of looks like she knows what she's doing when it comes to social media. I wonder if she could help me with my job or my company. So I think that, you know, it's funny now because businesses really look at you in such a full circle way that they're not only looking at your social for like, okay, what do you do on the weekends? But they're like, okay, are you socially savvy? You know, like, do you have those marketing kind of quirks and genes to turn something into a little bit more than what it is?
Yeah. Awesome.
And I think,
Kenny, do you want to go through some of the Academy people's questions?
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions on the sidebar that I think could be rolled in.
Those are the questions that were pre-submitted first, though, because they are able to submit.
Okay, yeah. So, and this one kind of ties in with the ones on the sidebar. Is when you started building, was it something that happened gradually, or is it something that you've had? So I noticed a year ago that you kind of had a big pickup.
Yeah.
How long have you been on Instagram? How is it? Has it been something that was kind of a hobby, and then you decided at some point that no, I'm going to put more time into this and more of my energy and my heart?
It started, I've been on the platform for about a year, just over a year and a half. About, as you said, like 6 or 8 months in is when things started to pick up. And I think that was when I started to kind of figure out who I was on the platform, who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Something that really helped me was I chose what I call like social media crushes. Just kind of people that I thought, I was like, this person's killing it. Like this person just knows who they are, knows how to convey what they're doing, is not doing it in a salesy way. They're very authentic. And I don't want to say that I like studied them, but I was definitely inspired by them. So I think that
would you mention any of those people?
Yeah, one of the girls is Jessica Olie, Jessica Olie. She's a really big yogi, and she does a lot of stuff. But just someone who's really organic. Yeah, someone's commenting Southern Yogi. Those people I love, just because I think that they really do a good job of balancing that sales with like also people are totally getting to know them. So I think finding, that social media crush or whatever you want to call it was really helpful for me too.
Is Jessica Olie different than Southern Yogi?
No, they're just like best friends.
Okay, so I think I remember Jessica Olie. Guys, even though it's tempting, we'll write down links and stuff you can follow after. Let's just be present here and not. Yeah. So we've hosted Gypsy on for 2 different sessions in the Academy, and Rachel Braith and Yoga Girl and I go way back. They got tons of creepy PMs. I do think it is interesting to me, not to come back to that too much, but 3 of us were just in a cafe talking about it. All the others were women. And the vibe you put out is less like sort of sexy time.
Yeah, not as like sassy, just more like, hey, like I don't mean to be the girl next door, but like I can.
Yeah, more like girl next door, if that means what I think it does, or just like best friendy kind of like you're. And
I try to be really relatable. I hope that comes across. I don't know.
That we had a lot of variations on that. Another question that comes out of it. So the last question came from Janine, but another one is, and we talk about this in the Academy of how, and you talked about this a little bit at the beginning. How do you find your thing? Like, is it, are you branding? Are you thinking about it from a marketing standpoint, or is it because yoga is what you love? You talked about using it as a way to be able to fill workshops and to follow your right livelihood, to follow your path.
Yeah. I mean, what I did when I first started was, as I said, I had a lot of different things going on my page. And then I just started to kind of gravitate a little bit more towards what people were resonating with. So when I first started, I made like this big document, and I just wrote down like all of these words that I wanted to be described as, and all of these things that I was passionate about. And from there, I kind of started to
Oh no.
What just bring up maybe another question. Let's put a couple questions out there.
Yeah, we've got a couple of great questions.
The ones on that sheet.
Yeah. So we also will ask about some hashtags as well, which I know you can talk to this, Waylon. Brittany asked suggestions on the best way to find.
Away, so don't talk, okay?
You keep us on our toes.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm back. I'm here. I wasn't gone ever.
Yeah. So where were we? What were you talking about?
Finding your thing.
Yeah. So let me contextualize that a little more. We also talk a lot about voice, like finding your voice. Mm-hmm. Tom Hanks was just on Colbert, I think, and he was talking about learning from Nora Ephron, who was a director. She died of cancer, I think. She directed Sleepless in Seattle and a whole bunch of beloved films. And Tom Hanks wrote some story back in the 90s for The New Yorker, or maybe it was the 2000s. And it was super popular. And he said to Nora, who was a good friend, do I have a voice here? Should I keep writing? And he sent her some short stories. And she said, they're great stories plot-wise, but you haven't found your voice. So she said, here's my advice. It's 5 different things. It's voice, 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 voice. And he talked about that, and I love that. I wanted to share it with the Academy. So how did you, so not just thing, which is important, like what, is it yoga poses? Is it food? Is it travel? Is it what? But also your voice. So tell us how you developed that journey.
I think once I started to write a little bit more and think a little bit more as if this was a journal, it kind of happened naturally. I started out writing a lot more like playful, logistically, kind of like black and white. And then once I started, it sounds corny, but once I started like leading a little bit more with my heart and saying like, okay, this is what I actually want to say, rather than like sitting here telling you about a yoga flow. Like I actually want to tell you about my day and what I learned and how I listened to a podcast and how it made me, you know, shift my thinking. I think that the voice did kind of come naturally from there, but it was never a voice that I thought I would have had. If you had asked me even a year and a half ago, do you think that you'd be writing these like inspirational captions that are like 5 paragraphs? I'd be like, absolutely not. So I think for someone, when you're trying to find that voice, like go back to your values, go back to what you're passionate about. Like, how can you combine all of those things? And it takes a lot of trial and error. I mean, it took me like 6 to 8 months before I even started to partially get a grip. And then I would still have these days where I was like, I can't write this. Like, this is embarrassing. Who wants to read this? You know?
We often quote, Danielle, sorry to interrupt it, but I think Allen Ginsberg is Ginsberg or Kerouac. I read this quote like 15 years ago, and we repeat it all the time in the Academy, but I have no idea who said it really. When he said, it's what the world is most dying to hear, what you least want to share. And that's a little bit melodramatic, but there is this sense like, oh, wow, Danielle is sharing her day, her heart, and people connect with that.
Yeah.
Kaylee Starr has a fabulous question along this line. How do you keep yourself psyched up about being authentic? Because it's so easy to burn out, especially, you said that you've kind of decreased the amount that you post, that you're down to once a week during weekdays, but how do you keep that motivation up to really share authentically?
I mean, I post once a day during the week and then I take the weekends off. And I think of my weekends as honestly like a reboot, right? You can only spread yourself so thin for so long. So I think that finding that balance is really important. So I think too, like gradually easing into things, like if you set yourself up for, I'm going to post twice a day, 7 days a week. It's a lot of content, but it also depends on what your content is. I think that, you know, when you're posting things that, you know, may not need to be so staged or, you know, take so long to create, maybe it's a little bit easier. I think if I'm feeling, I struggle with this a lot, because there's days where I'm like, oh, I haven't posted today, I should really post. And then I'm just like, honestly, I'm not feeling it. And if I don't feel it, it's not going to come across right. Like my caption's not going to be what I want it to be. It's not going to read right. The writing's not going to come out. You know, I do a lot of, if I'm thinking of something, I put it down in my notepad. So I have like a notepad that has a list of like 5 or 6 bullets. Like I'll be listening to a podcast and I'll say, oh, that would be a really good thing to share on my page. Or, you know, I'm talking to a friend and something comes up. And so I think that that's a good way too, for even on those days when you're like feeling so not inspired or not, you know, like yourself, it's just a tidbit to get you going.
I want to talk about that a little bit. So we do some teachings on writer's block. And so I sort of like slightly disagree with, I think it's really powerful to recharge and take breaks. That part I'm in love with, and not to guilt trip yourself or ever share out of feeling like you have to, because that defines inauthentic. So I agree really with everything you say, but I would add that if you don't feel like share, like there's this great quote that applies to social media and Instagram. It says, people are sharing the highlights of their lives while you know the behind the scenes of your own life. And that's why Instagram and Facebook are shown in study after study to feed insecurity.
Yeah.
So that can be reversed by people who are genuine or you know, kind of ordinary.
Right.
Like in Buddhism, ordinary is a beautiful word.
Yeah.
You're showing up as yourself.
Right.
So if you're burned out, it could be really powerful for Danielle Rudulski in the perfect pastel pants, running around looking perfect with her perfect boyfriend and the perfect weather and the cute dog. To say, hey, I feel like shit today. Yeah. You know, to say, hey, I'm burned out, I'm tired, and maybe I have a great life in some ways, so I'm not like full of self-pity right now. I know people have it really hard out there, but there are days when you're going to feel burned out, and you can make this real, genuine connection. Because I think that's why I unfollow. Like, I honestly don't totally love. I don't want to like talk shit about people like we're in junior high, but I don't totally love Southern Yogi and some of these accounts because it's perfect.
Real.
And perfect isn't human, you know?
Right.
I think, you know, I personally, being a guy, I skip past your yoga clothes in the mirror stuff. I couldn't give a care, but none of it seems egotistical. So while I'm skipping past it, there's no part of me that's like, I hate this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not my thing.
Right.
So let's ask Sukriti's question, because that kind of connects, and Heidi. And I think Danielle kind of already answered this, but if you have different topics you like to share about, is it better to have separate accounts?
I think it depends if they're totally different or if they can at all be intertwined. I think that everything can be intertwined. I just think you have to find the balance. I think 2 accounts is really hard. I think that, you know, if I was talking about like prescription medication and yoga, like obviously those 2 don't really go together. But I think that if it's something that, you know, like you can mesh, I think you should try to keep it together, because I think it also shows diversity. And if both of those things are really important to you, I think it's just about finding, you know, the right way of combining them.
Yeah. So like Sukriti says, writing and cooking. I would love to follow an account that is about someone. So Sukriti, like bring it back another step. You're not sharing about writing and cooking. You're sharing you, and you love writing and cooking, and maybe India, and maybe travel, and maybe friends. So to me, that's why I would follow Danielle for another year or forever, is I'm getting a rich sense of someone's life. It's not just like yoga pose, yoga pose, yoga pose, yoga pose every time. And even yoga poses could be great every time if the captions have some human sharing about that's genuine and you know, different every day.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
So we have a great question that I think also segues nicely into this. Eva starts by saying that your account is stunning.
Wow.
But she also wants to know, how do you stand out from the crowd? So when there are so many accounts that are yoga focused.
Wow, great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, a big thing that differentiates me is I feel like I'm yoga with a lot of personal development. I feel like I talk a lot about like improving myself, wanting to work on things like podcast here, doing this there. I talk about my anxiety. I talk a lot about things that I'm struggling with. I think that that's a differentiator, but I do think that a big part of it for me is trying to feel really relatable. You know, I don't want people to feel like, oh my God, like, who is that girl? Like, I want it to be like, if you meet me, you've known me forever. In terms of the content, I think that my content is really simple. I mean, in the yoga world, my yoga is like barely a level 2 on a scale. Like there's girls that like have their toe in their, you know, their mouth while they're standing on one foot. Like, I think that there's a lot.
So can I interject?
Yeah.
So not to be tacky or anything, but I dated one of those girls.
Yeah.
She's a major star. And behind the scenes, she was smoking cigarettes, and all she ever, which is fine, people can do that, whatever. But all she ever ate was white bread and white rice. She didn't like anything on it ever. That's literally what she ate every meal. And she never practiced yoga. She would be very open about it to her friends.
Yeah.
She would say, look, I'm not a yogi, but I used to be a gymnast, and I can just do this stuff. She could be like,
yeah,
you know, do any pose ever. And she's a cool, authentic person, so I don't feel bad saying any of this.
Yeah.
But the yoga thing really was kind of for show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people too that just, you know, like I see a lot of pages that I don't really resonate with their captions and their photos to me, like what they're doing. I just could never dream of doing it. And then I feel like you get into that game of like self-comparing and why can't I do that? And they've only been doing yoga a year and they can do this and I can't even do that. And I've been doing yoga for this long. So I think I just really try to promote a positive place. Like you'll never see me saying like, I drink a green juice every day and never have wine. Like I love wine. I eat chocolate. Like I'm a big believer in balance. I think that a lot of these pages are not like, they preach about balance, but they're not really. Like they'll be the first one to say, you know, you shouldn't be doing that as a yogi.
So one thing, so Rachel Braith and I I feel like a name dropper over here, but we were talking this week and about the school shooting.
About the what?
About the school shootings. I just started echoing. And she had shared a whole bunch about the shootings in Florida. And she's a very feisty individual.
Yeah.
Like, she kind of can't restrain herself, which is kind of what I love about her. One of the reasons I like her and respect her presence on Instagram is that she will use her platform, whether it's for rescuing dogs like with Sergeant Pepper's or 109 World Shoot. So how do you feel like that's part of your duty as someone who has a big community now? Or do you not try to get into using your platform for causes?
No, I feel like it is. I feel like I'm just trying to find the right one. Like, I've had companies reach out to me that are big with like mental health awareness, and and I've thought about doing a lot of stuff like that. For me, it's just finding the right way of conveying it, because I don't want it to feel, I want it to be like, okay, I'm using this platform and this is why I love it. And then 3 months later, I'll do more of a marketing post. I don't like to ever do anything that feels like an ad, because I feel like that it takes away a lot of the effectiveness to me. So I think that
the best Instagram people are the ones who do the causes through their own experience and voice.
Exactly.
Like, when you do mental health, I want to hear about why you care.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've dealt with anxiety for years. And that was something that was one of the reasons I started to get into yoga. And I did a post the other day. I was like, I've tried to combat my anxiety with medication, with running, with doing things that I don't like, that, like working out and doing these crazy workouts that I'm not that crazy about, changing my diet. Like, I've tried everything. And one of the only things that really works for me is keeping myself busy. Like, when I'm busy, I thrive. I don't have time to think about anything else, especially my anxiety. So anxiety is really big for me. And that was one of the reasons that, it kind of struck a chord. And, a couple people in my family have suffered really heavily with depression and suicide. And so it's just close to my heart. And I think you're totally right. Like, you do have a duty, I believe, to, help other people with a platform that you built.
Well, if you're up for it, we were talking about doing another video for a public one. That would be powerful to talk about.
Totally.
If you're up.
Yeah.
And everyone here, I'm sure, would enjoy getting to know you through that more personal way.
Yeah.
Kenny, you have more questions?
Yeah, so we have a few kind of more detail specific. So is there such a thing as too many hashtags, have you found?
This is like always a changing. I swear to God, every time I wake up, I find a different article that says something different. So,
and this one's from Allie. Sorry.
What was that?
Oh, it's from Allie. So
okay. I used to do like 20 hashtags per post. I would put it in the comment of the post. I think that you could probably find a sweet spot. As many. I would say anywhere from 7 to 10 is probably good. Yeah, do you guys hear the echo?
Oh, it's back now.
Yeah, Danielle, I don't know. Oh, I'm echoing too. If people coach you, but close everything you have on your computer that isn't, Chrome or whatever. Yeah, don't close.
Okay.
She can't refresh her browser. Well, she could. She would have to move. You could refresh your.
Yep,
browser.
because Jen can pull you back on too if you.
Okay, I'll refresh.
Okay.
While Danielle is refreshing.
Well, let me just say something about that.
Yeah, because we have. Yep. You're echoing a little bit. You're echoing a little bit too, Roman.
She's still on. If she's gone and I'm echoing. Okay. Danielle and Kenny, take it away. I'm going to refresh.
All right. So Danielle's refreshing again. This is.
Am I echoing?
Yeah, a little bit. All right. So this is the Kenny show. And I'm glad you're back. Oh. So you were talking about hashtags. And
yeah. So
finding that nice in between.
Yeah, I think finding the balance is important. I used to use, I think, way too many. Now I try to keep it to like 7, 8, 10, somewhere around there. Something to just be really cautious of is any hashtags that are shadow banned, which pretty much means like somebody will take hashtag yoga everywhere or hashtag yoga, and they'll start posting like inappropriate content there. So Instagram flags the tag as being banned. So what will happen is then if you're using one of those tags in your post, basically your post is just going to get buried. And it'll likely get flagged as inappropriate as well. So
how do you know what shadow banned?
What was that?
How do you know what is banned?
Go and check out the tag, because it'll say like the tag has been removed, or, you know, tag has been flagged inappropriate. So kind of, you know, you have to keep up on it. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. But that's something that for a while was really decreasing my engagement. I didn't realize that I was using tags that were shadow banned. I'm also a big believer in
tag. Oh, yoga everywhere. Was that the one?
I don't think that one actually was. But just like anything random, like it doesn't have to be like hashtag naked girl. You know, it could be like hashtag green juice, and somebody just starts posting bad stuff in there. So I think too, what was I just going to say? Oh, I use more specific hashtags. Like I don't use the bigger ones. I like to connect with, you know, smaller. I like to obviously connect with bigger audiences, but like for me, I use like a geo. Like I'll use hashtag NYC yoga or, you know, hashtag NYC wellness, just to bring your kind of your post to the top of the feed rather than getting so deeply buried.
Do we have more? I'll scan through those questions too. There's some great questions for Danielle.
Yeah.
People get crazy excited when we have Instagram guests on here. Like we have famous authors, we had a world famous journalist, all these people are like, oh, cool, that person was great. And then when an Instagram person comes on, people are like, oh my God, like people.
Well, if we don't get to anything, or if anybody thinks of anything, you can always shoot me a message. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. We've got another great one from Ava about insights. Have you investigated statistics or insights on Instagram and how?
I have, but to be honest, I think the Instagram insights are not that great. I've used I think it might be Iconosquare. They have pretty good analytics. I know that they're paid. I used to use them for my last job.
Iconosquare.
Yeah, that's the one that I like. I think that they're a lot more reliable than Instagram. I don't know. A lot of my insights for Instagram never change. So it's like, I don't believe that. I feel like things are always changing. So I have a hard time resonating with those insights. I think that there's a lot more value to be found in like, okay, say you don't know what time is the best to post, like actually test it out yourself. Like do one post in the morning, one in the afternoon, one at night, and see where your engagement is better. I think Instagram's pretty good for like in terms of your demographic, especially of age and gender. I totally trust that. And I check in with that every now and again, because like, as Waylon said, with getting weird, creepy messages, I obviously don't want my demographic, no offense, to be like 75% men, right? You don't want people just liking your stuff because they're like, oh, here's a girl like in tight pants doing yoga. I want people to be reading and resonating with me on a different level. So I check my insights for that.
Are you like 95% women?
I think it's 75 or 80. It's pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
Because all 4 of the elephant accounts are 89 or 91% women.
Really?
Yeah. You'd think we would be more. You think we would have more guys because we talk about environment, politics, whatever, not just yoga. That's so interesting. So you have a lot of guy fans, I guess.
No creepy messages yet. So far, only like 3. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So normally we talk about how to handle the creep, or just even I think that's pretty easy. You answered it. You can kind of just block it. But if it's a difficult, challenging, offensive comment, but it has some good stuff in it too, like you're no longer authentic. I find that dogs are flipping out. I find that really more challenging and interesting when it's half good and half bad.
Right.
So if I say, yeah, I mean, we already covered that though. Kenny, you have more?
Yeah.
I can go next if you're done. Okay, go.
I've got another one around using Instagram stories. And so how that's grown a lot in the last year as well, and how you've been able to use that.
Yeah, so I love Instagram stories. I think of it as a place to share like tidbits of your life, but to also test out new content. So I know someone had mentioned thinking about like writing in food or writing in travel, whatever it was. I think that that's a really good place to kind of get your feet wet. I get a lot of direct messages from people like replying to my stories about like a recipe or a yoga flow or like music choices. So I think that that also kind of helps you to gauge what your audience is kind of enjoying. And I love the poll feature. I use that all the time to find out if people are interested in workshops or like, would you prefer an article on, you know, mental health awareness or on wellness tips or gut health or, you know, whatever it might be. And then I love using, there's this app called WordSwag, and I use that a lot for, yeah, that's
So there's
the
the poll.
WordSwag app.
I just screenshot this from Danielle this morning.
Yeah.
Is that good for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's WordSwag, and that's a really great app to kind of, it lets you automatically resize for any social platform, including Instagram stories. I think it's not free. I think it's like $7. So, you know, it's more expensive than a lot of apps, but to me, it's totally worth it. It gives your stories a very unique feel. Like I get so many messages all the time, like, oh my God, how'd you do your story? So I love stories. And I think to just, you know, share a little bit more about yourself there. You can test out new content. Yeah, I love them.
Awesome. So that, I mean, that was another question was, do you make your own content? So your own memes and things and
Yeah.
use,
Yeah.
do you use other platforms other than WordSwag?
Yes, I use a couple other ones. Oh no, I'm echoing.
no.
It's not so bad.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I refresh again?
It might just be bad Wi-Fi in your area or something.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
I don't think any of us have a clue what to do. This is a bad
It's
Wi-Fi.
one of those like magical, mysterious internet
Would it help?
things.
Kenny, would it help if you want to take care of it and then take your video out? Oh, it's only 4 minutes. Should I leave? I can leave.
Do you want to leave? We've only got 3 minutes to the end of the hour.
Okay. Well, what homework do you have for folks or business?
Yeah.
So we'll do another video with Danielle. She's awesome. We'll do a public one. We had discussed that briefly, right?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Danielle, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that was so fun. I love that.
Yeah, you've been great. We'll obviously invite you back. If whether she comes or not, that'll be up to you guys. So
I'll keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do have one question. This one last question, and this actually comes from Molly, because Molly is also a personal chef, and she wants to know if you could share one recipe, one fun recipe. What would it be? Because we hear so much about all the other aspects of your life, but
One fun recipe. Okay. This is something I just made. Oh, it's not that fun though, but I really like it. There are these, there's sweet potato medallions. So I just slice sweet potatoes, and I've been trying to eat more turmeric. I know I'm like really late to that game. But the sweet potatoes, I just slice them, put them on a cookie sheet, olive oil, salt, a little bit of cinnamon and turmeric, and roast them for 20 minutes at 400 on each side, flip them over. And they're so good. Like if you're craving something a little sweet, if you want something a little salty, they're like, whoa, good. I know it's kind of boring, but
that sounds delicious.
yeah, they're really good.
You had the social media.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I'm so late to the game, but I'm hooked.
I have to add. So I'm an environmentalist type. So I have to add something that will blow your mind if you don't know, which is that turmeric is like sunflowers. It sucks up all the toxins from the earth.
Oh my God.
So they use it in like nuclear or Superfund waste sites. They suck up all the toxins and they cut it. And they cut it, sunflowers, or pull it, turmeric, and they dispose of it in a safe facility. So even normal turmeric in a normal farm, if there's pesticides, it'll absorb and concentrate all the pesticides, and then you eat it or drink it in your golden latte and you think you're being healthy. So turmeric has to be organic or it is awful for you.
Okay.
No, it doesn't suck up your toxins. It
Okay.
it's
So I won't find it at the dollar store anymore.
but just make sure it's organic. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're like, yeah. Anyway, you get it.
Thank you for that. Jen was just posting that everybody's going out to buy sweet potatoes now.
Yes.
Tag
me.
You're damn right. Well, sweet potatoes are often yams. Actually, people get them.
Oh, and that's a vegan recipe. Yeah. I did that on.
You what?
I said I knew that was a vegan recipe too. I figured that would be.
Yeah. And for those that didn't see, Danielle also posted the other apps that she uses for photos.
I don't use them all on every single thing, obviously. I know that's a long list, but some are for video editing. Some are for like a really great self-timer that you can customize. And I don't even use Photoshop. I have Photoshop and I use Touch Retouch instead, just because it's so much easier.
So one maybe final question for me. So a lot of yoga teachers have used Elephant or Mind Body Green or Well and Good or whatever, blogs, Huffington Post back in the day. I don't feel like anyone really does anymore, to promote their career or their teaching in the same way that you were talking about. Share a sweet potato recipes, share a yoga sequence, share an article about anxiety, whatever. Link back to your website with your retreats and all that. Is that something you recommend or do?
Is that something what?
That you recommend or that you do or both?
Oh yeah, totally. 100% recommend it. I think that's great for sure. Anywhere you can get your name out there, I think is great. The more the merrier. The more people that you can connect with, and the more people like, oh hey, I've seen that girl's name before, or I think that's awesome for sure.
Cool. Well, all right, there we go.
Okay. Is there another answer?
No, that's great. I think the Instagram like yoga bomb in the last couple of years has changed the field. So where like literally every young yoga teacher who had just done teacher training in America used to like blog on Elephant, like a rite of passage. Now people, it's easier. You can post directly, you can post a photo, it can be short. If the photo is attractive in some way, you can just write 5 words. Some people just write like a quote. So Instagram really has been, so it was a genuine question. Like, is it still good for your career? I mean, I know it's good for the careers of those who are successful on Elephant, who are consistent and, just like Instagram, you got to be consistent, you got to be genuine, you got to share it, you got to develop a community. So I know it's good for them, but I don't see most yoga teachers, I think, presented with the option to write a blog and go through editors and, get the help of editors. Maybe that's a positive, but it could be a negative and that it slows it down, versus posting directly to Instagram, where you get kind of immediate feedback. But what I'm always saying is, and I'm biased as Elephant guy, is a bad article on Elephant will get like 4,000 reads, all of whom are outside of your choir. Whereas a really popular, huge post on Instagram might get, like with you, you're getting 900 to maybe way more than that. I don't know what your range is.
But I think too on Instagram, especially in terms of, articles and writing, it's okay. Yeah, maybe I'm getting 900 likes, but how many people are actually clicking into my bio and going to that article and reading it? It's like that extra step is a big thing. So I think, platforms like Elephant really help you, as you said, to reach people that, are outside of your community, which is is amazing.
And it could be other sites. This isn't meant to be like a plug, but it is meant to be a general question for someone like you. Because I do see some teachers are still, or yogis are submitting to Elephant or Thought Catalog or whatever it is. But
I also think, and I think too that like being on those platforms, whether it's Elephant or anything else, when you're a published writer, it gives you a lot more validity. It gives you that, okay, you Google your name and now you're coming up in news, you're coming up as a published writer. It gives you a lot more. It definitely helps your reputation, your credentials.
And then what else do you do? Sorry, a late flurry of questions. What else do you do outside of Instagram? So you were saying YouTube, because you have a good marketing brain, I can tell. So like, what else are you doing for yourself?
YouTube. So I'm working on a series of classes. I've been getting a lot of questions about like, can you post more on YouTube? It's funny you said that about the elephant YouTube because I posted videos initially and then I logged on the other day and I hadn't logged on in a while. And I was like, oh, there's subscribers here. Like I should totally capitalize on them.
Yeah.
No.
Oh well. She was great. You have any homework? Deal with some homework and maybe we can.
Yeah, so the last couple of housekeeping announcements. We have a Facebook Live meeting tomorrow, which is Thursday, February 22nd at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we are going to be talking about Facebook Live and Twitter and how it connects to current news content and moving into our journalism ethics of why Waylon uses Facebook Live. So please join us for that.
Well, that's changed in the last week, so we'll have to have an update.
Yeah, we'll chat.
Well, Danielle, you have been so exactly what I expected, which is such a good thing. You've been so real, so friendly, so unpretentious, which is so rare. And Kenny or someone through Kenny asked a great question, which is how do you stand out? What we teach in terms of how to stand out is don't yell louder than everyone else yelling, but be yourself. And then people come to you because it's a relief and there's a genuine connection. And I think we've all found that with you today. While you were online, the Wi-Fi has not been our friend. But everyone, thank Danielle. Say whatever you think. You can be honest. If you hated her, say whatever you think in the comments. I know no one hated her.
I said that to Kenny before. I was like, I hope somebody looks at my page. I'm always down for a good critique. I love that.
Yeah. Well, my only critique of your entire everything you do, because I really do enjoy it and like it, is I want a little environmental stuff because all of those clothes are plastic and made in China, and they're beautiful. But like, I want a little bit of like, do you care about made in America, or do you care about how to make organic cotton or any of that stuff work?
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. But you're so wonderful, Kenny.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us. And I want apprentices to keep that in mind because I think Danielle's last few comments about how she uses Instagram to get people to her blog and people reading her words and getting those out there, that is going to carry through the rest of the academy. So next week we start journalism ethics. And so keep that in mind. This is why we start with our social media portion first, because you're building up the foundation to be able to share your words out into the world as well and to connect with people. So remembering that.
And here, as the editor of Elephant Journal, I would love to see you blog regularly on Elephant. Who here would be into that? Let's brown nose and pressure her in our last seconds. Blog on Elephant, Danielle. Your voice is your voice is needed in this crazy egotistical world.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've inspired me to even look at my Instagram again. Like, oh, there's actually things maybe I could do. So
damn right.
And if I'm ever in Moscow, we're gonna hang out.
Yeah.
And then just
Kenny,
the last thing is your LMS will be released on Sunday. So those are all of our housekeeping announcements. And thank you so much for joining us today, Danielle. This was incredibly refreshing.
Thank you.
And felt, for especially a newbie, and I know we have a lot of those in our academy, it didn't feel intimidating. It felt very accessible.
It's be fun. Have fun with it. Life is too short.
Yeah, awesome. Any closing
well, thank
thoughts,
you. Yeah. What's that?
Any closing thoughts?
Well, the bow.
The bow. Would you like to lead us?
You can. You do it.
Okay. All right. And coming back into our bodies, maybe with a nice gentle smile on our faces, eyes open, connecting to our breath, reflecting on all that we've taken in this last hour, and gratitude for Danielle, and taking a moment to send those thanks out into the world. Thank you all for joining us this week. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Waylon.